I've been here and these guys have not been here yet. So this is kind of exciting day for them to see it for the first time. This is a 145 acre piece in southeast Iowa, and it's got two-side access, it's got good tillable, it's got some CRP on it that's got great kind of feathered edge and also adds income. And this one's super unique because of the way the terrain lays. How these deer use this property because of these drastic terrain changes is gonna be kind of how we structure the project around.
I think a lot of people don't realize that. You know, they see something really ditchy and it may, because it's hard to walk or whatever, they might shy away from it and not think that's positive. But we have several farms like it. You can see how deep the ditches are, and it just creates such great funnels. And that's how you'll kind of position your food plots and stuff like that, just getting them coming around those big ditches and create funnels with them. Just like we had fences on the last one, this one we have ditches.
And it's all south facing, so all those points go in south facing, and we don't need to go in there. But they got to come out of there, so
right.
It's our job to figure out how to catch them to and from or on a food source. What makes this exciting is nobody hunted it last year. There was a bunch of standing food, some pictures of some big deer, and it also happens to be shed season, so that adds a little excitement. This real estate market is just so crazy. When stuff comes up for sale and it goes through the brokerages and stuff, you know, a lot of it just, they already have so many buyers lined up that, you know, they make a few calls, send it a few times, and it's gone. We have a pre-market buyer list, and that gives you the ability to put your email in there, and we send upcoming farms and projects out.
A lot of the best farms never hit the market. You'll never know about those. So many of them are all bought and sold, the best ones without the public ever knowing. But you need to get on that list, because if you're not, you're gonna be missing out on some of the best deals, some of the best farms.
We've been here literally 3 minutes.
That's a new one. I thought it was sticking out of the grass, yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what that means in the shed hunting world, right?
Yeah.
Turn around and go home.
You're not gonna find
Because
another
that's
one.
gonna be about it for today. That'll be a freaking big deer next year.
Yeah.
So this end of this big draw right here, like, is an example of kind of how the repeating theme on the whole farm. And then all of a sudden you get to the end of this big draw, look, there's a giant scrape.
Concentration set.
You, like, coming up and it's just gonna be an up and around theme on this whole place.
Yep, we have those on ours. Probably the most famous stand we have is called the Go Around. I mean, actually, it was one that Will Primos and the Primos guys hunted there before we bought it.
Yeah.
And so he told me about that, said they named it the Go Around. And it's still a stand on that same tree because there's a deep ditch that goes down to the river.
Yep.
And those deer all come off the big alfalfa fields, and now we bought that farm on the north end too, so we own all that, so we'll keep it in food, so when they come off of that, they go up, but they gotta go around that thing to get into the bedding.
Yep.
So you just, there's every deer that'll pour off that north end just comes right around that.
I wanna go back on this flat right here. There's two steep draws on both sides of this big long flat. And then when you get to the end here, there's this little break in the terrain that lets these deer get into the bottom. Like, you can just tell those deer are using that little terrain break to come up and over that top of this flat. When those deer get cruising and they're manipulating their ways around these big drop-offs, it only takes just a little tiny change in the feature that these deer will gravitate to be able to pop up and over these ridges.
Nice thing is you see those big crop fields down there. They're not on this property, but the river's on the other side. So, you know, you have just so much food source down there, and this is where they're all gonna bed, so it's great for mornings.
And, you know, you're noticing it's pretty open in here. So, like, we'll probably go through here and pop some trees out of here in certain spots, get these ends thickened up, get some of these side hills thickened up, maybe even take some of these ravines and choke them out a little bit more, even limiting more of the places they can go up and over.
Got that shagbarks. I hate having stands of shagbark, but it's a perfect thing there with that north wind going right over that ditch.
Yep.
They're not gonna catch you there.
And, you know, and you're giving the deer that north wind right in his face, coming up out of either side of this, you know?
Right.
Maybe we set that blind low right in here, and then have the gap start like right there and go all the way down. Then you could get out and sneak out.
You could have it this big all the way around to all the way across. If you had the tree koi and stuff in the one corner, everything's gonna end up at that anyway.
Right.
And the thing is, if you have a big field like that, what you want to do is it's just like this. You want to have it disappear around like that, especially times when it's corn that you can't see. And for me, a lot of times I would just keep these in corn. Even though people are like, well, you got to rotate them. You don't have to. You just have to fertilize differently. There's farmers around us that plant corn for the last 30 years. You get a good corn crop. But it's nice when you have standing corn like that and you have a green this way and that way. They always want that point where they can see up both ways.
So the V of corn will be like this. So you're gonna have a green triangle that way and a green triangle this way.
Right, and the only way they can see both of those is from the point right down there. That's where the tree koi is and where your blind or stands are at. And even, it's funny because even in the timber, even how we pick stands in the timber, is a lot of it would be like, okay, it's this, it scrapes or rubs. I don't even care about that. For me, the biggest part, is where is there enough contour in there where they can't see? Because when you're gonna rattle, if there's a big flat out there, we just did this for the deer that Tiffany killed. We went and picked it out, and we put 3 stands in it, and we had to pick it out, but it was a piece that's in between 2 food plots that buck was on, but he could be anywhere. But it doesn't matter. He's gonna hear those rattling antlers from wherever. It's gotta be a place where he can't see though. It's gotta be ditchy. Okay, if he's down there, he's not gonna see till he's right out at the stand. If he's behind us, there's a big ditch there, or a rolly goes off. He's gotta come up to that top to see where that rattling is from. And that's where we planned it that way. First time in there, rattled, boom, he came up. But there was like 6 bucks that all came in right there. They started chasing does. He went on to the next ridge over there, but now he could see to this ridge, so we just leave him alone. And so we waited until he got down into the big ditch, and it waited like a couple minutes. So just let him be again, because it's been so soon since all that stuff. Hit him again, boom, right up on ours again. And he held up because he's like, okay, I heard the rattling was the same spot, and I was there, and I didn't see him last time. So when he looked away, I gave him a snort wheeze, and then he couldn't stand it anymore. He shot him at 25 yards or whatever.
It's kind of like you're taking macro perspective and strategy and tightening the noose, and you're working backwards off of ingress, egress, and dominant winds. So like that tells us we need to have a setup on this side of the corn for westerly winds, or this side of the plot. And then, so we're down here, we've got this grass screen that we should be able to thicken from burning, so we can utilize this to hopefully place the blind and get out. So that's a given, be able to slither out the back end of it. We've got an inside corner with the ravines that pinch deer, so we're attracted to that. So we kind of picked a blind placement based off of egress and dominant winds, and now we can start building layering strategy to put them in bow range, which is partially, like a stretch of something to funnel them in. It could be woven wire fence or something 100 yards long just to pinch them to the end, a tree koi, and then the shape, what's planted. I always say food plot strategy is it's like 80-90% strategy, and then the rest. Right. I mean, there's more to it, the nutrition side, but as far as like, shooting deer on it, it's a lot about the strategy and how it's shaped. And the only thing we can do is layer odds. Like what we do, we're taking this very unhuntable field right now, and we're 95% chance if you see him, you're shooting him. And that's what we can do. And I kind of talk about like your overall hunting strategy is like a game of Jenga, and every block is like a layer of strategy. And some of them are little things, like the tree core, cutting those trees down, like you say, or the shape of but all together, you start tipping the odds major in your favor. And sure enough, it's the one stupid little thing, like the fact that you cut those trees down, it's just
funny. That's what I was gonna say, because there's so many people that are like, you think of the average person, that just, hunts on the weekends and because they have a job and stuff like that. It's like if they shot a big one once in their lifetime, that's probably above the 50% mark. I mean, 50% of people never even see a big one, let alone shoot one. But there's so few that like do one. But there's people like us, we shoot them every year. And part of it is just obviously time of hunting, but all the little details. And that's when it's your job, like for us, it's like you're thinking every little thing. And it's like, okay, if you had a 5% chance of shooting this deer on a place a year, okay, well, let's cut these out. Okay, that adds 2%. Okay, let's do this way of food plot, that adds 2%. You start doing all these little things, and all of a sudden these 2%, 2%, all of a sudden I start adding up to 60 and 70% chance. So like, you gotta do all those little things. You get a deer that's like 6, 7 years old. A lot of times, like before we did anything, we first just bought our farms and just started maybe putting in food plots. you maybe would see him and maybe get that opportunity at him like once or twice in a year. You start doing all those little things, and all of a sudden I got an opportunity at him when he's on his feet, get the weather right, it's like 80% chance you're gonna shoot.
Yes.
No deer gets through us anymore.
Yeah.
He said if we put one on the hit list, he doesn't know it yet, but he's done. Because no deer ever gets through unless they break something, or if we decide something else. Okay, we decided to shoot this other deer and we shot a different deer. Okay, let's let him go. But if it's on our hit list, it used to be like in the old days, it was like, dang, didn't get him. Now, if he's on the hit list, it's over.
Yeah.
Because all these little things that we've done and learned over the years, you just increase your chances at that deer by this much and this much and this much and this much.
That's a great benefit of buying one of our farms too.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. You're bringing all of that. It took all of us so long to do that, and you're applying it to one piece of ground that somebody can step in and take the advantage of. Giant rub right on the backside where this thicker portion meets the wide open portion, and terrain comes up and creates kind of a 3 reason why they're using this.
Yeah, and they always will against that. Like on our place, we have those patches of cedars that have almost gotten too thick for them to walk, but they always walk right on that edge. They can always dip into the cedars if they need to.
Smoker.
But they like walking on the open stuff, but you're right next to cover.
Crazy spot. Big trail right here.
I think this is a case of wrong tree, right spot. I think we just enhanced that tree. That tall, skinny white oak there, I think needs to be the tree because of where it's at. And then I think, take some of those cedar branches and stuff and ratchet them in there behind you, because most likely you're not gonna have a shot that way anyway because of that ditch. So get some back cover up in there. That gets us out there on the head of that point. In the north, we use that ditch for access. And then we got the pond over there, which is probably about 40 yards. And we'll probably bring our funnel, which it'll either be, treetops or a woven wire fence or something. We'll bring it off that field corner that's 100 yards over there, and we'll bring it right to the pond. There's already major scraping here, but when we put a tree koi right here, all this scent is pouring in around the head of the draw and the fence. They're gonna annihilate this. This is a killer spot with no manipulation, purely because it's set up for a north and you're on the downwind of all this cover that they can't see does laying in. So they're gonna pinch around here. It's a pinch point, and it's also on the downwind of doe bedding, and it's also from a macro perspective, it's also an inside corner of the field. So killer spot on its own, great access, worth the reward, risk worth reward, to come in from our south access up that ravine. I think we bring it right to this tree, even though it's out of bow range, or maybe we bring it right into the water. We just bring it right straight shot from the corner of the field, right into the water. And then they're most likely gonna just go around the water and shoot right on through. One of my favorite setups we've ever seen.
You get right in here and it starts to tip a little south facing, and a little bedding, a little thermal cover with these cedars, and all these big rubs start to pop up, and it's right 50 yards from this little water hole that we're gonna kind of build this whole spot around.
If that woven wire fence comes from our pond all the way to right here, once again, we have a tree koi at the concentration of scent. We have a ditch coming up there and a hickory you can hunt with a northeast or a north, and it's a really high odds camera setup to monitor things here. And once again, the theory with the wind, if you get like a southeast wind in the rut, the theory is he's putting all that bedding upwind of him. So he'd come through here, and now instead of staying in the inside corner, he's gonna pop right out the edge of here, probably hit that scrape and then dive back in. So it becomes a really good spot. When the wind is one direction, he should be on the end of the pinch point we created that end set up for, and with the opposite wind that this tree would work for, he should be up here.
This drop off's pretty major, like everything's kind of coming around this tip. Cool terrain feature.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Look at the picture, like between that point and this one, is maybe where I'd have the food in this side here. If we think that's the best bedding, maybe we don't encroach on that. I might just leave that alone, hunt here, and they're gonna come out of there. They're gonna go either that way or this way. And cameras will tell you which one, and wind direction will tell you which one.
Do you think that we need another standing food source down here, or?
I was thinking green, probably something, just this little point from that nipple to this.
Take that across right here.
Yeah.
The further that way you can get the blind, the better angle you have with like a northwest. Plus there's some tall grass, and then that ditch you could shoot into there and billy goat the backside.
Get behind that stuff.
Pop up behind all this stuff and get out of here.
Yeah. You can't even see the wheels. You can't even see from the bottom 3 feet of the Ranger there.
All right, so we're wrapping up today here on the ground. We're gonna kind of bounce some ideas back and forth and look at onX, and we're gonna meet up on a Zoom call here that we'll record, and hopefully you guys can see this plan really come together on these maps.